how the binder strategy allowed Dion to retire early. This is a presentation he first gave to Bigger Pockets virtual event, which it was awesome, I hear. But he's going to bring it to the one rental at a time fans after the fact, which is totally okay. But Dion, thank you for doing this. So give us a summary. Why this PowerPoint? Why this presentation?
So it's really weird presenting on Bigger Pockets or on one rental at a time, because I'm the guy who was watching, right? I jumped into real estate and I didn't know anything. And that first year was so bad, I tried to quit. It takes boot camp, MOS training, infantry school to become a Marine. It takes 6 months to become a cop. And I was just going to jump into real estate with no education and just, I'll figure this out. And, since I'm not a real landlord, I couldn't trust a stranger, and I rented to a friend who would have a contract between buddies. So no lease. And he was a single parent. So when rent was late, I let it slide, and late became never. And when I went and talked to him, he didn't live there. He had moved out, rented the house to someone else, was collecting. He was a better landlord than I was, and he didn't even own a property. And luckily, this is where the lucky in my story comes out. This is not from hard work or preparation. This is actual luck. I was underwater on the house. The 2008 housing crash had happened. I owed more on the house than it was worth, so I couldn't give it up. I tried subject to with, I don't know, probably a dozen people, but it was so far underwater, even they wouldn't take over just the payment.
Wow.
So then I thought, let me figure this out. Let me actually educate myself. Went online. YouTube was more dancing, TikTok videos than it is today. It's a little more YouTube University now. But I found Bigger Pockets blogs with a B. They weren't doing vlogging. You were writing for Bigger Pockets. I don't think you'd had your Brandon Turner experience yet. And I was reading articles from a bunch of different content creators on Bigger Pockets. And I think I found Rich Dad, Poor Dad around the same time, not a how-to book, but a mindset shift book, Cash Flow Quadrant, that helped. And I realized, okay, so there's other people doing this. Let me educate myself. So I dove in. I'm talking thousands of hours of reading, tons of books, then the Audible books, and then YouTube University. So to go from that to presenting on Bigger Pockets to being a keynote for the October event. And I don't think I can be clear enough to say, I get to hang out in a room with you. You're presenting there. Matt's coming there. Chris Voss, who did the art of the, it's not the art of the deal, that's Trump. Never Split the Difference, but he also did a lot of law enforcement training.
Yeah.
It had an impact on this
FBI,
thing called read, interview, and interrogation.
Negotiation, yeah.
That a lot of law enforcement. So I get to hang out in rooms like that. That would never happen if I wasn't watching these kind of things. So the reason for this webinar, I believe, was, let's market the October event. And Bigger Pockets knows what they're doing. But it was a chance for me to come on and go, I solved a major problem of mine with the binder strategy, and then let's make a binder together. So that's what we're going to do today. Let me, if I can figure out the tech, because I don't have a 10-year-old around here to do that for me. And we will just do it in this format. I believe it's on the screen there.
It is.
And then I think I messed up with my ability to share. Let me.
So we are sharing. Oh, wait.
It goes away if that's like I said, not good with the tech. Hopefully it went better than this on Bigger Pockets. I'm sure it will. So basically, I do this introduction at the beginning of Bigger Pockets, why I'm there. I give a little story about me. And this is the one where I normally don't like to do this. I like to talk about how it ended. But I want to talk about everyone has the excuse, right? What was your starting position?
I love this story, but I got to tell you, I think you're missing out because the actual debt picture was 200 and whatever it was. I don't think you tell the full impact with this 89 story.
Yeah, I tend to make a video about that every now and then on, it was $313,000 in actual bad debt I didn't know about until the divorce. And I was able to negotiate that down to $89,000. So there's like a lesson there on how to negotiate down your debt. And kind of like you and Matt, you know, you don't share net worth income because it's very impressive and almost unattainable to the newer person. So we talk about get to 4, get started, get 1.
Okay.
I think $89,000 in bad debt is manageable because that's what
Is
I ended up
plenty.
actually paying back.
Right.
If I start with 313 in my head, even though that's what happened, it just seems like, well, that person should just, you know, check out.
Bankrupt.
There's no fixing that.
You're just hitting all the people with Ivy League educations that haven't started to pay back their student loans.
Oh, that's true. Ouch. And so I express the bad starting position, single parent, 3 kids, not making a lot of money. But then I go, and after about 8 years of investing, I had reached the cash flow that I need to retire. Right. I spent about $4,000 a month. My cash flow in 2018 was about $17,000 a month, maybe a little less at the beginning of 18, but at the end of 18, it started to get closer to there. I was diversified, so I could talk about being diversified in 2 different ways. I had the reserves. And then from 2018 to 2022, I had tested my portfolio, but I didn't have the confidence to retire. There was something missing. And this is where the binder strategy actually solved a major problem for me. Okay. I can find everybody who's successful. The One Rental at a Time channel, the Millennial Mike channel, the Lumberjack Landlord channel, Bigger Pockets. They bring on guests that go, look, they bring on Cody Davis, right? 30 rentals before he could buy beer. They bring on Coach Carson, the Small and Mighty, like all of these things. I'm like, oh, this is good. But where are the people who tried real estate and failed? There isn't a big Facebook community or YouTube channel of, we used to own rentals. And so I spent 2020 to 2022 hunting for those people.
Okay.
I was ready to retire. I had the cash flow. I had everything stacked up except for the confidence. And it's weird. The Marine in me is like, I'm confident in everything. Even
I was going to say, yeah, when I think confidence, I don't think Dion lacks it in many places. So this is a little self-reflection never hurt, I guess.
And that's the hard part of this, is saying I absolutely was like, yeah, if I pull the plug, I've got a good job. Finally, I got demoted down to president of the company. I was making good money. If I walk away from this, I'm not going to repeat that again, probably. But then I found the right people. Any guess on where the people who used to own rentals are? Stock groups. See,
so
see, exactly what I thought when I realized it. So I went to Choose FI, Mr. Money Mustache, to all these people that do the 4% rule. It wasn't even the Dave Ramsey group, because they're just like, all debt is bad. And I was like, okay, well, that doesn't help me. But the people who used to own rentals, who are still helping people, sharing information, they're in the Choose FI community, the financial independence, retire early. It's predominantly stocks, and real estate is bad because some of them got burned. And so I found them. I talked to over 50 couples, some single, but couples, in 2 years. Why did you get out of real estate? There were some that the tragedy, death, divorce, health, whatever,
life.
Lawsuit, something, life, right? There was a few, but almost all of them made the same mistake.
And
you guys have probably heard me say it before. Do any guess on what the mistake that, like, 95% of the people who used to own a rental made this mistake?
Didn't raise rents.
100%. Didn't raise rents. Even Graham Stephan.
Yeah.
He sold rentals because he had them for 10 years, didn't raise the rents because he was making so much on YouTube. I don't need to make more money for my rentals. And he had a dawning realization. He said in one of his videos, I would have made more money with my money buried in my yard than sitting in that rental. So he sold some. And so I went across the board. This is the biggest problem. It was never my state voted in bad laws. The insurance did this to me. The lawsuit did this to me. You can mitigate most of the risks with different things, but if an actual choice, because of the mantra was, I didn't want to raise the rent and lose a good tenant. So my answer every time in my head was, well, you lost a good asset instead. And at that point, I already had the binder strategy. I'd already been on Bigger Pockets, episode 448. I'd shared the binder there. It was like a year and a half after that now. I had a YouTube channel. I was teaching the binder strategy. I made a course for free at diontalk.com, how to learn the binder strategy. So I retired in 2022. The confidence came from what was the most common reoccurring issue, I have the solution.
Hmm.
And
I
it
like
isn't that the binder is the solution. The solution is my rents won't stay stagnant.
Yep. I like it. All
So
right.
then for BP, I use some examples to explain the binder strategy, where it comes from. And my preference is to buy properties. So when you guys buy properties as investors, most investors want, do they want tenants or they want empty properties when they buy them?
Most want empty.
They want empty. So I've eliminated a lot of competition. I want properties that have tenants who are living in fear. They're thinking, am I going to get kicked out? Are they just going to raise the rent and I can't afford it? Or do I have to move because of my pet? Like literally, I've been a tenant. I've had these, oh, are they going to sell the property? What happens if they sell? I think when I was a tenant, I didn't understand that your lease stayed through the sale, but you're still going to have new owners.
Sure.
So I target properties that rents are low, landlords haven't been taking care of them. Like we have all of the same issues on purpose because I was working, I was raising kids. I didn't have a lot of time to go and rehab a unit or list a unit and screen tenants. I wanted existing tenants, rents from day one that were low. And then I would go in a couple of months later and use the binder strategy. So it's one of those things where why, most people want their leases to end in the summer. I want mine to end in the winter because I'm going to have less tenant turnover. I kind of look at things a little bit different. I want
because you
less
don't have real winter.
Well, I also live in the Pacific Northwest where winter
Yeah.
is like a mild
Right.
summer,
You don't exactly. You don't have real winter, right?
No, I don't. I don't live. I choose to
Yes.
not live in Siberia.
That's true. That's true.
So
That's true.
and so it makes sense to my market. You're absolutely right, Matt. Real
Yeah.
estate is local.
Absolutely.
Gas is much cheaper heat where you're at.
Yeah.
In Washington, I rip it out of every property.
Yeah.
Like it's 3 times the cost of using just electric to windows open, electric heaters running.
Yeah.
It's cheaper to do that here. So
Yep.
you have to know your local market.
Absolutely.
Example of that is in Washington, I get more rent in my carport properties than I do my garage properties.
Yeah.
And if you don't know your local market, you'll make mistakes.
Yep.
So the idea with the binder is let's actually make one. Like there's a whole course on the mentality, the book that I just wrote for One Rental at a Time. We're going to be publishing together. There's a section. The first part of the binder is the very first binder and how it actually happened and why I was like, oh, this is how I should do it every time. On the cover of the binder. So it's a 3-ring binder. I actually
it's a physical binder. Yeah.
It's a physical. You can do this the way Matt does through text or email. Include that. All you're doing is showing them the data. The reason I do the binders like this way is so you can get like the mentality to each aspect of it, and then use what makes the most sense to your situation with your relationship with your tenant or your property manager or the Section 8 Housing Authority. This is, I think I blocked out enough on here to share. This is my first house hack. That's the side-by-side duplex, garages in the middle with the ridiculous colored doors that they had when I bought it.
I was going to say, are those green?
It's yellow, I think. I don't know if I can.
Yellow?
I can't. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a nice mustard.
Yeah,
it is beautiful. But like my dad said to my brother when he was trying to insult him, people will rent anything.
Yeah, exactly.
It wasn't pretty. One side was occupied. The side that I moved into I counted at the time 72 holes in the walls from punches and kicks because the tenant that got kicked out for the sale was upset with the previous owner. So I did an owner-occupied duplex that was empty, but I got to learn how to do some drywall, and we'll never do it again. And I know how much it should cost when I hire somebody to do it, though.
There you go.
The reason I'm showing this is I want to say, look, your rent made sense for the previous owner. They bought it when it was much cheaper. But do you see the current Zestimate or Zillow estimate or Redfin estimate? My property taxes, my insurance is based on the current value. The tenant doesn't care.
Right.
They do not care about your expenses.
Nope.
If they did, a property with a mortgage would rent for a completely different amount than a paid off property. True. What I'm doing is showing this is from the interwebs. You can look this up too.
Yep.
Being transparent. I'm going to show you information that you can find. So that's the purpose of the front cover. But presented in a way where I'm not saying that. I don't come out and go, look, you can just go look all this up. I might reference that in the conversation, but that's not how I open. I open up with, here's the picture so they can see. This is data on where they're actually living at. Then I show
Can you
a
make it a
map.
little bit bigger? When you shrunk it, it went a little bit too small. Can you make it? There you go. A little bit more. A little bit more. There you go. Oh, now it's too big.
Just right.
Stop.
Perfect.
Perfect. That
Okay.
works.
Interesting. So this is the area. Parkland, if you go down to Spanaway is where you need a bulletproof vest to go everywhere. Parkland's not quite as bad. But this is 2-bedroom units, full rent in the same area. Okay.
Got it.
The last time I talked with these tenants, the purpose of this binder, rents were they were $1,460 both sides, because they had been bindered previously.
Mhm.
And when one chose the number, the other one said, "Oh, that sounds good. We'll both go there." So they're both paying $1,460 plus water. This is what rents are now. This is after the massive rent spike of 2023, when the eviction moratorium and the rent freeze went away. Rents went significantly up. There's, $2,300, $2,500, $1,700, $2,400. There's kind of a spread here of $1,700 to $2,400.
Sure.
So what I don't do is I don't cherry pick. I don't go and grab the 25, the 25,
Mhm.
the 24, and go to the
Yeah, because
tenant.
they're gonna do this themselves. That's the magic of
Absolutely.
this.
Mhm.
Exactly. I want to show transparent. You're at like 1460. Here is what the area, just a flash, snapshot of what's available in the area. And I don't know if you can see all of that.
That works.
Too much.
Yep.
Okay. So the next page, and this is literally page by page in the binder. The first one is, here's the map. So, I'm looking at your area, because they're commuting from work. They've the school district. They want to make sure I'm not looking off and, in this market 2 towns over, right? Or
Sure.
in the area that's more bougie. I showed the rentals around here. Here's what Section 8 will pay in this county. I think this might even be the wrong one. Did I put the wrong one? Huh. I'll have to check. No, it's Tacoma. Okay. So it is the right one. Section 8, including utilities, will pay me $2,057 as of 2025 for the place they're in. It was 1987. When I did this actual binder, it was 1987, because this was the beginning of the year. And I basically just say, look, if you move out, this is what the government will pay me for this place.
Yep.
Right.
And I let it sit there for a minute. Now, I'll technically, since it's a piece of paper in the binder, the 2057 will be highlighted. I'll take a yellow highlighter, draw attention. So it's because it's a lot of data. They might not even know what they're looking at, but when they go, oh, the yellow is right there, that's what I'm supposed to look at. So make it really easy for them. Then, since I live near a military base, if you live next to a college, this has just as much relevance, because if you use your GI Bill or voc rehab, from an injured military injury or parent's injury to attend college, you get paid basic allowance for housing. That's what the BAH rates are. If you go to college, you get E5 rate. That's basically a sergeant's rating. If you're in the military, if you'll notice, E1, 2, 3, and 4, it's the same amount, because you're generally in training for 1, 2, and 3, and then you finally get to your base. It's E4 and E5 that finally starts to move off base. So I will have E5 highlighted. Say if they're going to college, this is what they get paid for housing. If you're on base and you're probably, if you live here and you're living off base, you're probably in E4, E5. You're paying 14. The military in this area gets paid at least 2,200 to live in this area.
I like it.
And then I actually pull up examples. And this is where I don't go information overload. I don't want 30 examples. I want between 3 and 5.
Okay.
Again, I don't cherry pick. I don't look for the 1,700. I might even mention there might be some places that are low income qualification requirements. And if you qualify, you should go move there. And some of the lower price ones might not allow pets. They might have a fenced yard. They might be, different. Then there's the really expensive ones. You saw the picture of the duplex. I'll say,
And I love the fact that you have the address. So again, they're going to be able to go drive these and see those differences, i.e. no yard, whatever.
Yep. No fences for this one.
Right.
And then this one, the pictures and the image don't really say, but I'll reference, I'll probably have it highlighted again. It's a 2-bedroom duplex. I'd have the word duplex marked so that they know they're looking at as close as much as possible, like for like.
Okay.
And then I'll go, here's a townhome. It looks nicer because it's got the fancy siding that hasn't melted yet and a nice paint job, but they have 0 yard. you have completely shared walls, you have all of the stairs, and then this is where the price is. Price is, it's just under 2,000 like that first one was. Again, I'll have the 2-bedroom highlighted, the price highlighted. I'll show another one. This is just another picture. Golden Given Road is a big road around here that most people know what the price is. I'm not going for the 2,500 ones. I'm not going for the 1,700 ones. I basically do this. And then this is where the magic of it comes from. I go, slide them the binder.
Mhm.
What do you think is fair?
Now, let me ask you this, because again, you do that right in that, or do you give it to them and come back, or?
So I asked the question right then because we're not agreeing to anything or signing a lease. We're having a
Okay.
conversation and I go, okay, what do you think is fair?
Yep.
I want to say every time, it's almost every time, the tenant wanted to sign now.
Hmm.
In their head, the idea is, so that's why this is it's like a nuanced thing. The tenant was thinking I could get kicked out. Now
Yep.
the tenant's actually being involved in the conversation to set their rents. This is weird. This is the first probably for most.
Yeah.
And then the dawning realization is, what is the best thing for this owner to do?
Let
Kick
me
me
leave
out
and rent it out for more. Yep, of
and get
course.
a ton more, right?
Absolutely. Yep.
So I actually might even add a little more when I slide it across and go, what do you think is fair? I'll go, look, it's not my goal to raise you to 2,200 or 2,500 like you see these other places going for. I'm not stupid. I don't want to do that.
Mhm.
But what do you think is fair?
Yeah. We actually say we don't really care about the very top of the market, just like we don't really care about the very bottom of the market. You're not going to live at the top and you're not going to live at the bottom. You're going to want to live somewhere nice in between, safe, clean,
Yep.
And that you already have that here. Yep.
Love
that's one of the things we add for sure.
Yeah.
Because we want them to toss out that top and bottom number.
Mm-hmm.
Because more than likely people will be attracted to the bottom number and then they're willing to forgive things, but they don't understand what they're really forgiving. Usually you're giving up safety. Usually you're giving up
Convenience,
traffic, and exactly all of these things. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Like it.
So
So again, this whole binder strategy was that missing confidence link for you. Back to the opening slide, that little missing check.
I mean, there's a couple things. One, I got to litmus test for 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
For 4 years, I didn't touch a paycheck. I built reserves. I was saving more of the rental income than I was living on. Right. I had all of those examples, but it was, if the most common thing that made people used to own rentals was the rents not going up. My brother just used the binder for the first time a couple of months ago. He had tenants with the same rent since 2006.
Oh my goodness.
And rent control was threatened in Washington. So he was like, hey, how does this work? And he went and did it 3 times without raising the rent, just on existing tenants to like learn how to talk to people with this strategy and get confident with it.
Mm.
Then he went and did it with the tenants who needed the rent changed and had good success. I think it was like a 300 and something increase on each one. He's still far below area average, but the tenants are happy with the big increase, and he's closer to where he needs to be with the rent.
Sure.
That's, to me, this is absolutely where the confidence came from.
Yeah.
Like,
I like it.
When I was looking at retiring, it wasn't, is the cash flow going to be enough? Am I going to be bored? What will I do with my time? It was none of those. It was, why did everyone else fail?
Yeah. You identified a weakness in the system and you fixed it.
Yeah. So, and then getting to go on Bigger Pockets and share this. I mean, it's in that community. It's what I'm known for. Is I'm the binder guy.
Yeah.
Or the lazy guy, I guess. They both fit. So
there's nothing about you that's lazy, but I understand the sexiness of that title, but okay.
Well, so it's the right kind of lazy. This binder. What's that?
Lazy now.
Lazy now.
So
you earned getting lazy.
It probably takes 10 minutes to find the examples, to print section 8, to print BAH, right? To put it in the binder, 10 minutes. Then it's a 10-minute conversation. And yeah, sometimes the tenants will take a couple of days and come back to me and say, hey, can we think about it? Sure. Absolutely. Leave the binder with them. I'm not trying to pressure. I'm not trying to hide anything. I want them to look up the data too. I've never had a tenant ask for the rent to stay the same or go down. I've had tenants ask for it to go up too much. I've had tenants ask for it to go up too little, and then we continue the conversation. I've had one time where it failed, and it was the best possible outcome.
Yes.
They moved.
Yes.
And I was like, oh, now I'm making, that one is, it's literally $980 more a month with new tenants because they had a den. I added a closet for $700 and it was almost $1,000 more in rent. So I'm super happy those remote workers were able to relocate to a cheaper area.
Well, I think there's so many key things in the binder, but the most important one for me is the tenant kind of pegs the number, and then they're involved, right? Because again, if you're a landlord, even if you were going to go to somebody and raise the rent $50 for whatever reason, but you do the binder strategy and the tenant asks for 75, just for example, they're going to be more happy with the 75 than 50. It's just weird how people, like, if they're involved and they pick the number, they're just going to feel better than being shoved $50. It's wild.
So, I mean, an exact example, in this case, they were at $1,460. If I went to them and said, hey, I'm raising your rent $100 or $200, I'm a jerk, right?
Yeah,
$100,
exactly.
it's a nice round number. It's huge. Both of those tenants went to above 1,700.
Yep.
I don't
It's
have to deal
win-win.
with tenant turnover. I don't have to do rehab. I don't have to list property, go months without income. I don't have to screen tenants. I don't have to build a new relationship. I have happy tenants that had about a $300 increase each and are happy.
Yeah, that's the key. That's the key. One more time, where can they find this free training that's actually been out there for years, but I'm sure there's new viewers that want to go check it out?
Yep, the website is diontalk.com. And you can get the free binder courses there. If you sign up for the binder course, inside I have the spreadsheet that I run my properties on. I also have my seller finance information from research in there. All of that's for free. You guys have made courses, it's about 10 grand. Did you just put one together? I have it out there for free because that one helps the landlord and the tenant.
I like it. Matt, where can people find you?
Lumberjack Landlord Thursday nights. We are making lots of progress now. The jail's moving forward. I bought 3 properties this weekend and we sold 1. So
wow, still buying, still growing.
Still growing. If the deal works, it works. Doesn't matter what else is going on. So yeah, we've got, we're growing. We got a lot of stuff we're doing now. The summer season hit hard. We're seeing what we're seeing with vacancies and longer times in getting units rented. But no real depression in the house sold for $20,000 over asking. Wow. So yeah, we talk about all that stuff, kind of the day to day of this is what I do, and that's what I do. I do that day to day, 9 p.m. Thursday nights Eastern time on Lumberjack Landlord.
And Dion, where do they find you?
Right here on YouTube, Dion Talk Financial Freedom, where if enough people leave comments, you might see me on Bigger Pockets more.
Get them on Bigger Pockets.
Yes.
Thanks.